We are live.
Hey, Eric.
Hello.
Welcome to a rare Sunday live stream. Surprised we got the Green Bard with us this time. As usual, I am Old New Dude, and he is
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and
Joined by
The Green Bard, your purveyor of the Bard's truth.
This is the Game of Thrones Eddard 14. It is the throne room scene. And as usual, if you've seen any of these videos, Richard, which is the brains of our two partnership, will go down what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. But we are blessed to have the Green Bard, so hopefully he can jump in plenty and often. So
hopefully he will be augmenting our stream so that we're better for it.
Absolutely. There you go. I'm happy to be here, and I want you guys to promise me I can do the next Eddard chapter as well. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
I sent you a DM. I sent you a DM reminding you this wasn't the last chapter. Wasn't the fever dream.
I didn't know. I thought that, and I wanted to do that one, but this one's good too, and I did listen to both, so I was ready for that.
All right.
Not a problem. So as usual, Richard, take it away.
All right. The gray light of dawn was streaming through his window when the thunder of hoofbeats awoke Eddard Stark from his brief, exhausted sleep. He lifted his head from the table to look down into the yard. Below, men and mail in leather and crimson cloaks were making the morning ring to the sound of swords and riding down mock warriors stuffed with straw. Ned watched Sandor Clegane gallop across the hard-packed ground to drive an iron-tipped lance through a dummy's head. Canvas ripped and straw exploded as Lannister guardsmen joked and cursed. Is this brave show for my benefit, he wondered? If so, Cersei was a greater fool than he'd imagined. Damn her, he thought. Why has the woman not fled? I've given her chance after chance. Wasn't Ned just thinking they would fight after Renly specifically warned him she was preparing and it would be too late? I hate to say it, but by this point, Ned is becoming a great fool.
Yes, he is.
I think we all knew, when he rejected Renly in the prior chapter, that this was a bad news, right? I mean,
right, yeah. Right, and Ned even realizes that. That's why it's a little bit strange that he's still on this. He's still like surprised by this, right? Because he's concluded in that chapter, like in his thoughts immediately thereafter, he seemed to be thinking, "Oh, they're definitely going to fight. They're not just going to run away." So it's a little bit strange that he's sort of regressed in his thinking here.
Mm-hmm. I think he's having help with the regression, the same that he had help with turning Renly down, the hidden fingers. Certain things have to happen a certain way.
Given how he immediately seems to regret that decision, that I can definitely see that logic.
Yeah.
And as you've said before, when people have had an idea planted in their head, it seems to go, forward and backward in time, or at least forward in time from that point to the point where it seems to be sort of continuing their motivation.
Right. Well, Cersei not leaving at all should be just a really red. Eddard should definitely know something is up.
Yeah, we defend him, but we're not defending him here.
Yeah. Up till now, he can play the game really well.
Yeah, right here, it's like, come on, Ned, get with it here. All right.
Yeah.
No, Ned answered. He hated rest. The gods give him love and laughter and the joy of righteous battle. It was strange how empty he felt. He'd been expecting the visit, and yet with those words, something died within him. He would have given all his titles for the freedom to weep, but he was Robert's hand, and the hour he dreaded had come. Be so good as to summon the members of the council here to my solar, he told Pycelle. The Tower of the Hand was secure as he and Tomard could make it. He could not say the same for the council chambers. My lord, Pycelle blinked. Surely the affairs of the kingdom will keep till the morrow, when her grief is not so fresh. If only he delayed and got the girls out of there.
Yeah.
Hey, he has an excuse right here to delay. He should do it.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get too far into it, can I throw a monkey wrench on some that you said so far, or actually what you haven't said?
That's what we're here for.
It's the morning breakfast, and we got Arya just wolfing everything down. Arya wolfed down everything that was set in front of her. Syrio says we have time for one last lesson. before we take ship this evening, she said, "Can I, Father? All my things are packed." With everything that's going on, and that sudden move and everything, apparently Sirio might not be going with them. But the fact that he wants to have one more lesson with her, in the back of my mind, I'm like, does he know what's about to happen? Especially with who people think Sirio is.
Well, he does seem to, right? I mean, in fact, his next chapter is juxtaposed with this one, where Sirio's specific lesson is, hey, you got to look at what's going on, and people are lying to you and so forth, right? So he specifically, first he teaches her, hey, I'm going to lie to you. I'm the one you trust, and I'm lying to you here. But you can see what's happening, and we're going to get some clues here that Peter is lying before the truth comes out. We'll get blatant clues that his whole body is shouting at us that he's lying, right?
Right. Well, I think this is the most important lesson that Sirio wanted to teach her. And he, if he's Jack Nagar, if he's a faceless man, if he's more than what he's seen.
And by the way, that people who say he can't be because thematically he has to be dead, the character is dead to Arya for the thematic purpose. That doesn't mean that we can't interpret the story that he deliberately lies. He tells you that he lies. He observes that that Meryn Trant is slow. Meryn Trant observes that he is fast, right? So later on, I think Sandor is even going to express skepticism that there's any way that Syrio Forel could have been killed by Meryn Trant.
Definitely in the show. I can't remember in the books.
Yeah. I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to search through the books to find out if he actually expresses that same skepticism.
I know it's in the show.
I haven't found it, but I haven't looked very hard.
Yeah, you guys obviously are going to cover Arya's chapter when that happens and see what specifically is going down there. But to me, there's kind of two things at play. Yes, Trant is not the man or the swordsman that Syrio is, but he's armed with a wooden sword.
Oh yeah,
and not a metal sword, and he's not in mail, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
There's a possibility it happens. We saw it happen with Dothraki and Jorah Mormont, right?
Oh, there's no question that's a valid interpretation of what's going on here.
What I think is going on, though, it doesn't. What I think is going on is George doesn't know at this time whether he wants Syrio Forel to come back or not, so he's leaving it open for us, right?
Right.
We talked about that last time, right?
Oh yeah,
well, that's kind of the point, right? These books are deliberately ambiguous. He tries to leave himself open to interpretation. I think he would love the Quentin is Alive video. I think he would love the Order of the Green Hands. John. He's basically said he wanted somebody to be talking the way the Order of the Green Hand has been about. He's basically given in public discussions. He's basically said the fans should be debating whether or not Jon Snow died. Right, and that's what spurred them to make that video. Right, and one of the things Preston keeps saying is, look, I'm not saying that he's going to be alive. I'm saying George throws kids out of windows and hits kids in the back of the skull with axes and burns people in front of us.
Yeah, we've seen too many people look like they're going to die.
Including burning somebody in front of us.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's just right there. But the other thing I wanted to say is, and I got a lot to say actually, but Braavosi culture is also showing through, right? So even if Syrio Forel is not Jaqen H'ghar, Braavosi culture is talking about we learned that as being part of it, and then she sees it later on in her story, the water dancers and all that. That culture is different, and the things that at the top of that culture is the Faceless Men and the Iron Bank and the water dancers like Syrio, right? And they all know these truths, right? These secrets, but truths, right? And Illyrio, by the way, right? And which she recognized immediately when she saw Illyrio. Yeah, exactly. So those things are real, and Syrio is opening her door to it so she can go further in next time, later, right? Whether she sees him again, which I think again would be great, but I'm not. Yeah, he's already fulfilled. He's already fulfilled the narrative purpose of being dead that everybody wants him to fulfill of being dead. He can still be alive. He's already fulfilled the purpose of being dead. Yeah. So, Casey, you just read the Arya segment. Did I miss that? Did he also do the Sansa thing and about seeing the prince? Did I miss that already? Did you already read that?
No, I skipped over it.
The Arya
skipped over that.
I didn't do any Sansa yet.
The thing I want to say about that is I got into it with somebody about parentage and being a parent on Twitter at one point, or maybe it was Reddit recently, and they're trying to say that that I was arguing Eddard had to be a perfect father. All I was saying is Eddard is not a perfect father. He's got some problems, right? One of the things he does is he has that heart-to-heart with Arya. He figures her out. He actually sees more of himself in Arya, and that's probably why he did it, right?
Yep.
He allowed her to do the things she wanted to do, meet with Cyril. He did not do that with Sansa. In that earlier scene, which you skipped over, she basically says, "Oh, but why can't I see Prince Joffrey?"
Right.
He never had the heart-to-heart and explained to her what was going on. It's a legitimate question, and he just brushes her off, and he pays the price for that too. Right?
Yeah, in fact, he's specifically, I think he specifically is paired up with Kat and Bran in the way he worries about Arya when she's missing, and it seems to imply that just as Bran is Kat's favorite, that Arya is Ned's favorite, right? And so, and I think the implication is that he's really kind of unfair to Sansa in his treatment because he favors Arya.
Yeah. Well, it's easy. I got boys and I got a girl. And my boys are, without a doubt, the easiest ones for me to deal with, just because I'm not a girl. So for Arya being the tomboy, it is just naturally easy.
How do we get rid of
Yeah, yeah, he does. He identifies with her way more than he identifies with Sansa, who obviously takes after and learned from Kat mostly, right? Both my kids are both kind of athletic, so I kind of know the thing, but my daughter was a firstborn. I was a firstborn. We identify with each other a little bit more from that standpoint. My son plays hockey. We identify too, but I can see how that type of thing happens. I've obviously striven as a parent myself to be really fair and open-minded and make sure that I don't do the things that we see here. But we all know that sometimes it's easier with one person than the other, right?
Right. And then with the Arya situation and the water dancing, if we remember when he's talking about Lyanna and her wanting to take up the sword, or somebody was saying it, it's like the realm would break apart that a female would take up a sword, that it was such a big deal made about it for Ned to go ahead, here's a water dancer, learn I'm thinking he's getting a nudge that way also.
Yeah, that was definitely good parenting there, right? I mean, absolutely, positively listen, hear, all those things. I'm just saying it's a contrast. He didn't do it with Sansa, and that's that was the thing that hurt the
right.
child,
and everybody gives Sansa right. Everybody bashes Sansa for doing what she did. Or I don't know if it's in the books or not. I can't remember.
Exactly. It's in the you see it in the later scene with Cersei in the Cersei POV, or in the next Sansa POV when she's in the room with Cersei and all that. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
it's totally unfair for people to be anti-Sansa because of that situation. It was Eddard's fault, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think George put that in there specifically so we see that, right?
Yeah.
He could have left that out, but he didn't. He made sure to make it clear that Eddard brushed her off, right? Go ahead. Sorry, those are the things I wanted to talk about.
Okay, great.
No problem.
Ready? Let's go. Severus and Sami was the first to answer the summons, immaculate in white cloak and enameled scales. My lords, he said, my place is beside the young king now. Pray give me leave to attend him. Your place is here, Sir Barristan, Ned told him. So that almost feels like a Tower of Joy reference, with the Kingsguard not where people expect him to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Littlefinger came next, still garbed in the blue velvets and silver mockingbird cape he had worn the night previous, his boots dusty from riding. My lords, he said, smiling at nothing in particular before he turned to Ned, that little task you set me is accomplished, Lord Eddard. Just a little task of bribery. His appearance hints he has been a lot busier than just that little task.
Oh, yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
he's been up all night. He's been riding hard. The implication is he's meeting with lots of people, not just going to Janice Slint.
Definitely.
The realm weeps. Shall we begin? When Lord Renly arrives, Ned said. Varys gave him a sorrowful look. I fear Lord Renly has left the city. Left the city? Ned had counted on Renly's support. He took his leave through a postern gate an hour before dawn, accompanied by Sir Loras Tyrell and some 50 retainers, Varys told them. When last seen, they were galloping south in some haste, no doubt bound for Storm's End or Highgarden. So much for Renly and his 100 swords. Ned did not like the smell of that, but there was nothing to be done for it. So Dorcas assumes they're ready to begin, perhaps forgetting not everyone knows everything. So I think the disparity between 50 retainers and 100 swords can be explained by all sorts of combinations of exaggeration, optimism, haste, the difference between who needs to flee and who would want to help. So there's a whole lot there, right? I mean, any or all combinations of those things could be involved in the difference between the 50 and 100.
Yeah.
And Guy, we always call Varys Dorcas because we're convinced that Varys is Dorcas.
Oh yeah, no, I caught that in your last stream, I think, and you know what? That's probably true. You know, I mean, it's as good of a theory as any, right?
Yeah.
As far as mistaken hidden identity.
Casey, I was like, he has to be somebody. I'm like, yeah, he's probably just some nameless guard. And then you start looking at it, you're like, no, he's Dorcas.
Yeah, no, I caught that.
Like we say, until George puts it on a piece of paper and sends it out through the publishers, everybody's right.
And as I say, I prefer to think of these as interpretations rather than theories, right? These are deliberately ambiguous work, and there's interesting interpretations of the work.
Sure.
He trusted neither Pycelle nor Varys, and Sir Barristan was honor-bound to protect and defend the boy he thought his new king. The old knight would not abandon Joffrey easily. So it's not clear to me if this what this might foreshadow about Barristan choosing between Aegon and Dany. I expect him to have an Ashara Dane fever dream from being attacked by, I'm guessing, the Spotted Cat and perhaps saved by the Red Lamb following the battle in Meereen. But
it shows that Barristan, or Ned understands Barristan, right?
Oh yeah.
Versus everyone else in the thing, he understands him. Honor is what drives both men, right?
Right.
And Barristan's honor is challenged in different ways than Ned's honor, right? Because Ned's honor is that of the Lord of Winterfell, that of friend to Robert, that of husband, et cetera, et cetera. Barristan's is that of Kingsguard and knight, right?
Right.
And so they're two different types of honor, but I think Ned understands him the most out of all.
Yeah, I just people are always looking for. A lot of people seem to have strong opinions as to whether he's going to stick with Dany or jump over to Aegon, and I've not really made up my mind there.
Well, I
think it would be much better for his character and for the legacy of his character if he sticks with Dany, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, also it shows Ned that an honorable man is easy to figure out. That he probably should figure out that somebody could figure him out pretty easily too, because his options are just limited to keep that honor going.
Right. That he's so predictable that's why they're able to outplay him here. Yep.
Yeah.
The need for deceit was a bitter taste in his mouth, but Ned knew he must tread softly here. Must keep his counsel and play the game until he was firmly established as regent. There would be time enough to deal with the succession when Arya and Sansa were safely back in Winterfell, and Lord Stannis had returned to King's Landing with all his power. So far, so good.
He's got plenty of time. He's got plenty of time in front of him.
There was no Lannister crimson to be seen, but Ned was reassured by the number of gold cloaks visible on the ramparts and at the gates. So reassuring!
Yeah, he for some reason he's still right to the end trusting Littlefinger. Yeah, I think keep going.
All hail his grace, Joffrey of the houses Baratheon and Lannister, the first of his name, King of the Andals and the Rhoynar and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. Of the houses Baratheon and Lannister? John was right about Cersei's pride of lions.
Yeah.
The first time he'd come this way, he had been on horseback, sword in hand. and the Targaryen dragons had washed from the walls as he forced Jaime Lannister down from the throne. He wondered if Joffrey would step down quite so easily. So Ned really is essentially confronted with Jaime Lannister having successfully usurped the throne here, basically, right?
Yeah.
He's planted
his worst fear is happening now again, and it's for real this time and not jokingly, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They were in full armor, enameled steel from helm to heel, long pale cloaks over their shoulders, shining white shields strapped to their left arms. I feel like our author might be calling attention to their armor for some reason.
Yeah.
Behind the throne, 20 Lannister guardsmen waited with longswords hanging from their belts. Crimson cloaks draped their shoulders and steel lions crested their helms. But Littlefinger had kept his promise. All along the walls in front of Robert's tapestries with their scenes of hunt and battle, the gold-cloaked ranks of the city watch stood stiffly to attention, each man's hand clasped around the haft of an 8-foot-long spear tipped in black iron. They outnumbered the Lannisters 5-1. Spoiler, Littlefinger had not kept his promise.
Yeah, so I want to take note of the scenes of hunt and battle again. We've talked about Robert at the very beginning. You had I don't. Did you do the Robert quote where he said no? Robert would like.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, so we talked. We had that little snippet about Robert right at the beginning. What Robert was about. The thing, and again, those things that Robert was about. Righteous battle. What was the other things? Those are the things that Ned loved about him, right? Not the man that we saw him become, or saw that he had become throughout this entire thing. I think last time we talked about Robert, and that was the video. That was the chapter where he slapped Cersei, right?
Yeah,
I think it was the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So that's the person that Robert had become, but Ned is remembering still the man he had been, right? The righteous battle, etc. And we get a little snippet of that here with the tapestries, right? Which of course, those tapestries are going to come back later as well.
Well, I don't understand because, spoilers for Wins, but they've already been used as part of the bribe of Nestor Royce, and so Nestor Royce has them now, and it's not clear to me what importance that is. I don't know.
People talk about that. The importance is, I think they're saying that the Royces are going to understand that the Joffreys or that the Lannisters are acting as Lannisters and not as Baratheons, right?
Sure.
But beyond that, I think there's still ways that can be used, right? But in this case, it's going back to what Robert is. That's the tie into this scene.
Yeah. I've always figured that on the friendship between Ned and Robert is he sees Brandon in Robert. Because as far as I can tell, those two people are a lot alike. And you got Ned being fostered at 11 years old? So he sees the older brother that he can't be around in Robert. And that just made the bond between him and Robert that much closer. And then from the point,
and he sees the older, he sees all those things that Brandon is, but in a person who is giving him attention, who seems to enjoy his company rather than it sounds to me from what I can see from Ned's background that he and Brandon didn't get along as well as they could have because there was some tension there, right? But he didn't have that tension with Robert. At least that's what I feel. We can go back to Catelyn's first chapter and talk about Brandon. Yes, Brandon would know. No, Brandon. He says Brandon 3 times, and to me, I think the second two times are expletives. But he left the name in there, right?
I got the feeling that behavior towards.
So he looked up to Brandon, but he never got it from Brandon. The love that he got from Robert, right?
Right. Well, I mean, he wasn't around Brandon that often, and I think that Brandon would know. I think that behavior from Ned was from the time of Robert's rebellion on. Brandon did this. Brandon started doing that. Brandon was supposed to marry because they talk about the shadow that's between them, and a lot of people like it might be Ashara, but the shadow between them is also Brandon between Ned and Kat. So I think there's a lot of I don't measure up to my older brother with that kind of talk from Ned.
You know, you guys know the shadow nose, that shadow nose thing that the Order of the Green Hand
Yeah.
the SSM, the shadow nose. What was it that they said the shadow nose? That George said the shadow nose. I'm trying to remember, but either way, I always felt like that the shadow is Brandon as well. From that discussion,
it was some sort of question about Jon Snow's parentage or something. And he says only the shadow knows or something like that, right? I mean, it's sort of it's the quote from the old comic or TV show. I think there may have been an old radio show or TV show as well, right? But it's a famous quote, but he only the shadow knows. My parents used to say that all the time. He kept a hand on Littlefinger's shoulder to help support his weight. Littlefinger is such good support.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great guy.
Protector of the realm, she read. Is this meant to be your shield, my lord? A piece of paper? She ripped the letter in half, ripped the halves and quarters, and let the pieces flutter to the floor. Those were the king's words, Sir Barristan said, shocked. We have a new king now, Cersei Lannister replied. Lord Eddard, when last we spoke, you gave me some counsel. Allow me to return the courtesy. Bend the knee, my lord. Bend the knee and swear fealty to my son, and we shall allow you to step down his hand and live out your days in the gray waste you call home. One last off-ramp before disaster.
I want to talk about the paper shield later. I think there's a tie-in that I want to hit, but we can go on.
Yeah, but it certainly ties into Jon and things too, right? He specifically refers to paper shields. You condemn yourself with your own mouth, Lord Stark, said Cersei Lannister. Sir Barristan, seize this traitor. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard hesitated. In the blink of an eye, he was surrounded by Stark guardsmen, bare steel in their mailed fists. And now the treason moves from words to deeds, Cersei said. Do you think Sir Barristan stands alone, my lord? So Ned's men do seem well trained, and I have to hand this to Cersei. It is brilliant to frame this as supporting Barristan against Ned.
Yeah, she was. That framing is exactly what she'd want to do if she was going to win, right?
Right. It's a brilliant move. I make fun of Cersei and her world's dumbest murder plot and how she basically just gets lucky. But here, this really is a brilliant move.
And we find out later that she did get lucky with Sansa coming to her and telling her all of Ned Eddard's plans, right? So
maybe I think the timing was pretty clear already.
Yeah, but she then acts on it. So
I'm not certain that Sansa's really made that much difference. I know she kind of says, "Oh, it was a near thing." Unfortunately, she did that and so forth. So maybe Sansa might have been able to get away. Maybe if she hadn't done that, I don't know. It's. I'm not even certain that that's true, to be honest. I feel like the real timing was the death of Robert. So I'm very skeptical of that one. People are hate on Sansa for that. I'm like, did that really matter? I know Cersei claims it did. I'm not so certain that it did though.
Yeah, it was more in disrupting the ability to get the kids out than anything else. I think you're right.
Commander, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying Cersei was ready for anything.
Yeah, that was my point. I feel like she was already preparing for this. Commander, take the queen and her children into custody. Do them no harm, but escort them back to the royal apartments and keep them there under guard. Men of the watch, Janos Slynt shouted, donning his helm. 100 gold cloaks leveled their spears and closed. I want no bloodshed, Ned told the queen. Tell your men to lay down their swords, and no one need. With a single sharp thrust, the nearest gold cloak drove his spear into Tomard's back. Fat Tom's blade dropped from nerveless fingers as the wet red point burst out through his ribs, piercing leather and mail. He was dead before his sword hit the floor. Ned's shout came far too late. Janos Slynt himself slashed open Barley's throat. Kane whirled, steel flashing, drove back the nearest spearman with a flurry of blows. For an instant, it looked as though he might cut his way free. Then the hound was on him. Sandor Clegane's first cut took off Kane's sword hand at the wrist. His second drove him to his knees and opened him from shoulder to breastbone. As his men died around him, Littlefinger slid Ned's dagger from its sheath and shoved it under his chin. His smile was apologetic. I did warn you not to trust me,
This is where the paper shield. I tie the paper shield. Robert armed Ned with a paper shield, and Littlefinger had Robert's dagger, and that's what those two things are. What took Ned down here in the end is Cersei just saying this paper shield's not worth anything, and Littlefinger not a warrior, right? Ned is this man who was renowned in the rebellion and all that, and all it took was a dagger around his in front of his neck by someone who's never been in a battle in his life.
Right.
He's been in a battle. We know he has.
But with Brandon,
a duel anyway.
The wounds that Sandor Clegane gives Kane or whatever his name is he cuts the sword hand off at the wrist, just like Jaime Lannister.
Right.
And he also opens the man up from shoulder to breastplate.
Right, like
just
he does with the Beric.
Beric. I just thought that was weird.
Yeah, no, it's definitely reminiscent of both of the wounds that we see in the Riverlands in that regard. Yes, the main wounds there. So anyway, I do like how this is immediately juxtaposed with, our next chapter is the Arya chapter and her learning the lesson, and you really do see that with the way Littlefinger has clearly been meeting with lots of people, which sort of implies that he's double dealing and meeting with both the Watch and with the Lannisters, right?
Yeah, and then the smirk and all that too.
Right, and Syria specifically talking about how my body was screaming the truth as I told you the lie, and so we see his clothes are screaming the truth as he's telling the lie there.
Well, then if you go back to Catelyn's chapter in King's Landing when she meets with Littlefinger and I guess she meets with Ned in Ned's chapter, but either way, she has an inner monologue where she's like, "Oh, he was always a little sly thing," and all that, and then she goes on to trust him. Right? It's like there's such a big dichotomy with her remembrance of the man, but then her nostalgic remembrance of their relationship doesn't allow her to remember who he really is or to even recognize it, even though she knows she intrinsically knows it. She just doesn't take that to heart. She knows that in her head, right?
And I would argue that Robert's
impressed. So's Ned.
I would argue that Robert's actually a pretty good king, except for the fact that Littlefinger's been able to bankrupt the realm because his first hand that he knows he can't rule. He knows he's incompetent at ruling, so he gets the best person to do the job. The problem is the best person to do the job is married to one of the Tully sisters who trusts Peter Baelish, and Peter Baelish screws over the realm. Right?
Peter Baelish was very capable. Again, and that's why John Arryn trusts him.
Yeah, he recognizes his talents, but what is he doing? He's embezzling, right? He's driving up massive debts and embezzling a fortune.
He's morally bankrupt, I guess.
Well, he's that too, and he's making the realm be literally bankrupt because he's robbing them blind. Some of these smell as bad as 3-day-old fish, or whatever the line is Tyrion says about how it's obvious that these ventures are bogus, right? And it's really just about Peter enriching himself and his friends and building loyalty, right? And and Ned is really pretty good at this, other than the fact that he trusts Littlefinger, and he trusts Littlefinger because Catelyn tells him you got to trust somebody, and this is the person you should trust.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good.
Go ahead. You got it, Casey.
What I was going to say is, I mean, like I said before, this had to happen this way. It had to go down exactly as it goes down, just for the simple fact that in a couple of chapters, this act right here is the only thing that saves G.R. Mormont's life. Because when John finds out about this, through Sir Alistair, he does what he does. Instead of standing the mid-watch like Sir Alistair puts him there all the time, midnight to balls to, and today we called it balls to 6, but the midnight watch on top of the wall, he wouldn't have been there to save G.R. Mormont. So Ned had to be betrayed so John could save G.R. Mormont, so G.R. Mormont could take the men north of the wall. I mean, it sets in motion.
There's a butterfly effect there, is what you're saying. Right. Are you suggesting that there's any kind of Bloodraven type of work going on as well?
Yes, without a doubt.
I do think we're likely to see. I tend to think that everything's Bran rather than Bloodraven, is time traveling Bran rather than Bloodraven. But I do think we're likely to see. In fact, I think it's already been hinted at, the idea of Bran trying to go back and change this, and it not working. All right. I think that the 1,000 Dreamers represent Bran failing 1,000 times, and that he's tried this over and over again. That we're in the version that works. We're in the version that he's altered the past. We know this because Hodor's been altered, right? So we know we're in the timeline that's already been manipulated and so forth.
Yeah, Leaf does tell him, do not seek to bring him back.
Exactly. The implication is, if he's time traveling, and I really do think that somebody asked us to try and explain the Hidden Fingers thing, and I do think that the concept here is the quantum leap concept, right? It's that you can work in the gaps of free will and people's decisions, that you can only send back. Sort of your consciousness can go back and alter people's decisions in a quantum leap kind of fashion. As Casey says, you cannot make the person do something that's fundamentally against their nature. In fact, Casey speculates that Bran tried to have Tyrion jump up and save Catelyn, and he feels this strange compulsion to jump up, and then he doesn't do it, and that might have been sort of a failed attempt to make him go against his nature. Right? He specifically says, "I felt this urge to get up and attack." But the urge passed, right? And I mean, it's possible that somebody tried it and then changed their mind. It's another, it's a chess move that somebody tried and then took back and said, "No, that didn't work." But whether it's because it was against his nature, or whether it was an attempt that then didn't work out and they changed it back, I don't know. But the point is, what we've speculated is going on here is something along the lines of quantum leap, right? And the whole concept of quantum leap is that you're not allowed to go back before your own time, because if you did, you could create the grandfather paradox and so forth, right? You could prevent yourself from coming to be. I actually don't know that we're subject to that, though, because symbolically, Bran is sort of I am who am, the God the Father. He's wed to the tree before becoming the old gods. And he's referred to by Old Nan as basically more eternal, almost as eternal as the stories, and more eternal than she is. So if he's sort of supposed to be an eternal God figure, then he might even be able to sort of create himself. So he may not be subject to the usual paradoxes, because his very existence may supposed to be paradoxical symbolically.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think George is considering that at all in what he has the time traveling Bran do. I think he knows that that Bran will be, right, and he knows that Bran will make himself be, right. Right.
Exactly. So if he's already sort of symbolically supposed to be this paradoxical God who creates himself kind of character, then the rules don't really apply as far as
I missed you guys when you did the chapter when Eddard met with Cersei in the Godswood. Do you tie that in your thoughts of it? Obviously, that is the Godswood. No Weirwood, but still a Godswood.
Yeah, he feels his gods there. He tells us he feels his gods there. It's also, it's the first. It's of the 3 times that we see Ashara's name in the first 2 books. It's the one that doesn't specifically tie the concept of Jon's mother to the shadow, but it does have the stars coming out and bearing witness. It does feel like there's a lot of talk of like the gods, the ancestors, the Dothraki ancestors, however you want to view that, Quaithe, Asherah, the Tree of Life, whatever you want to call it. It feels like there's a lot of concepts in there about sure. Bearing witness.
Obviously, my most in-depth study has always been in the Stark children in their chapters and in Dany's chapters, as you guys I'm sure are aware. But I'd like to go back and look at that, because I think obviously Eddard is close to the gods in that chapter. In this next one, I think we probably are all probably on the same page about some of the things that are going on, because that's when he gets the sensory deprivation, right?
Oh yeah.
And
that's the one you're foaming at the mouth for.
I am.
I know.
Yeah, he sent me a text earlier. He's like, does he realize this is not the other fever dream? I'm like, oops, I don't know.
No, I did tell you guys last time I want to do that, but this is good. I didn't want to wait. So
Well, it's good
We
to have you.
appreciate anytime you stop by. So,
So anyway, one of the things I would like to say about the whole hidden fingers and time traveling thing is Casey's kind of convinced me that there really should be, as Melisandre would say, there's two. There's the Lord of Light and the Great Enemy, right? And whether she has it backwards as to which is which, I don't know, but there's you get this idea that the dragons are watching, right? And Arya specifically points out that they're watching her, and that the entity that's watching her through them does not love her. So that doesn't sound like it's this benevolent player of the game. That sounds like this is this evil player of the game that's watching as well, right? And
right.
And they talk about how this is not a game for two players if ever it was. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, maybe it is a game for two players, and you're just a pawn and you don't know it, right?
I mean, we know it's a Song of Ice and Fire, right?
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't say that one is nicer or so I think it's two things that can destroy each other, but I don't think George is saying one's morally better than the other.
I would agree that Bran is going to be, if it's Bran and if Bran is the good guy as it were, he's probably going to be ruthless and brutal, right? And I think it's kind of funny. I've heard people, including like Direwolf City, be like, oh, I hope it's Bloodraven because I like Bloodraven because he's so ruthless, and I don't like Bran because he's too ruthless. And I'm like, what? Like he's only if he's going to be ruthless, he's going to be all the things that you love about Bloodraven ruthless, right? He's going to be, and what's wrong with how can you then turn around and say, oh, I don't like Bran because he's turning into this ruthless character? And I'm like. That's the point.
Well, I mean, look who he's learning from. I mean, he's going to learn to become ruthless from Bloodraven.
Well, right. And Sansa's very much paralleled. She's learning from Littlefinger, right? And in knowing who he is at the same time, learning about him at the same time. And she, I mean, at this point in the story, she knows what she's in, right? She knows where she's at. She knows she needs to get out of it. She just needs to figure out how to play the game to do it. And obviously, we all hope and are guessing that she will get there, right?
Yeah, I used to completely buy the idea that she would be like the ultimate hero at the end because she's the one on the slow growth arc, right? She's the one who seems like the one who's really learning politics but I think it is, like as you said, especially those two characters are the ones that are really learning to yes, you do want them to love you, but B, you also have to be ruthless.
my personal feeling though is also she's been in the Eyrie, right? And we purposely are told the Eyrie they can't get a weirwood to take root there. So she's been in an area where she's other than Sweet Robin, which I don't quite know. I mean, I think we probably all of us listen to the Preston's videos on Sweet Robin, but she's been kind of disconnected from that part of her life. What I think is going to happen is I do believe Preston's right that the Littlefinger is going to invade the Riverlands with the Vale army eventually, right? And I have a feeling that Sansa is going to be in Harrenhal with Littlefinger, and she's going to have her magical reawakening there, right? Where we saw all those scenes with Arya in the Godswood, etc., right?
Right.
And I feel like that might be where Baelish's downfall happens, just like the downfall of all of the other lords of Harrenhal, right? The curse of Harrenhal is real, and it's got nothing to do with Aegon. It's all about the God's Eye and the Isle of Faces, and I think that they're going to take him down, and Sansa's going to be part of that.
Could be, yeah, and it really is interesting how many people, how many groups she could have behind her, right? I mean, and I have always thought that just as it does feel like there's somewhat of a parallel between Marjorie and Tommen with Sansa and Robert, right? So Sweet Robin really does almost feel like a Tommen character, and her ability to manipulate him feels like it's supposed to be paralleled with Marjorie and Tommen to me. I know I've always had that feeling anyway.
Well, Cersei doesn't want that to happen. She doesn't want to have that connection that Sansa has with Sweet Robin, she's doing everything she can to stop that connection between Marjorie and Tommen. Because she knows once that happens, once they're that bond has got that strong, Cersei's out of the picture.
And I'm convinced that Tommen's going to die. By the way, I don't know if you've heard us on this, Ski, but it sure feels like the second Dance of Dragons is actually set up to be a Myrcella versus Arianne.
Well, so, I think Preston's right that Desert Girl, the girl that was cut by who knows who he was cut by, who she was cut by, but
right.
I do believe that the real Myrcella, she's over in Essos.
The one with the painted chicken pox on her or whatever.
Right. I think that she's gone. She is out of their reach, and that I think I'd like to. I mean, because remember, Tyrion gets fixated on that once he's in Pentos, right? And I feel like he knows something. He knows that he did something, but he doesn't want to tell Illyrio, right? So he's drunk out of his ass.
Oh, you're saying there's a third. You're saying there's a third double.
Yeah. I don't think. I think it's just.
You don't think either of the two are the real Myrcella? You think they're both fakes?
I think when Dany and Viserys, whoever Dany was, went to the Braavosi coastline. Viserys went to Braavos, and Dany went south, right? And I think the same thing happened with Myrcella's journey. They went over to the Braavosi coastline, and they sent kids both directions. But
there were three of them.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I mean, apparently, right? Because there's two of them in Dorne. We know there's the one with the fake chicken pox, and we know that there's the one that got her ear cut off. So we know that there's.
Why not? We know there's. You've done this before. That would mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you have two, why not three, right? I mean, if you're going to send, it kind of makes sense. Although one of the things I actually kind of have some doubts about with that is that. Or the Weeds of Winter may pull all this out anyway. But one possibility, one thing that's always bothered me about that is that we're in Ares Oakhart's thoughts, and he seems to be convinced that Myrcella's Myrcella, and he's certainly aware of at least one of the doubles.
Yeah, the use of pronouns in that chapter is kind of odd, though, right? It's hard. It's hard to know. I agree. It could be that the girl with chickenpox, but we don't hear a thing about her, right? So either
like what's going on? I mean, where is her double?
either that girl escaped too, or Dorne has her under lock and key and nobody's seen her, right?
Right. It's pretty weird. But
possibilities.
But my point is that when you look at Fire and Blood or House of the Dragon, what you see is you've got first off Arianne and Ares Oakhart and Jamie are the ones who are all talking about the Kristen Cole as the Kingmaker, and unfortunately in the show they didn't actually make him much of a Kingmaker, but he didn't
even kill the Lord Commander. He's standing right there. He did nothing. He just stood there and let him back out.
The whole, I mean, that's like the one part of the dance that's actually in the main book, so they didn't do that part. I don't understand that at all. But anyway, so. Casey, you may remember that in the main books that in fact Kristen Cole is the Kingmaker, and so he's supposed to have basically sort of launched the coup and given the speech that roused everybody to do the whole thing. And but anyway,
George, I
the
think
point is
that when he wrote Fire and Blood, though, I
mean, if you go back the way things were supposed to work, is it sort of almost implies that he may have been thinking that everybody had basically Dornish law inheritance, and then that they usurped and rewrote history, right? Because
we still see it in the North with Alice Karstark, right? She says,
"That's my point.
It's me,
it's clear."
Uncle,
well, that's part of my point, right? Is clearly what's going on in Fire and Blood is that they have, in fact, they are lying to you. The fact is that the realm is used to female inheritance. It has to be if you have houses that last for thousands of years. They specifically tell you over and over again, a daughter comes before her uncle, a daughter comes before her uncle, a daughter comes before her uncle, a daughter comes before her uncle. Like it's like in there like 5 or 6 times. It's over and over again. And Cregan and Arnulf Karstark don't go, oh, no, the Council of 101 showed that you're wrong. It's just considered obvious that a daughter comes before her uncle, right? And in fact, if you look at the history, basically every single Targaryen had a named female heir. And so it appears that what happened was the Maesters took this doddering old man who wasn't with his faculties anymore and convinced him that he needed to get the realm to sign off on his female heir. And then they rigged the election and stole the inheritance from the female. And then, if you read page 204, you can never ever have an inheritance go to your second wife's kids. It's specifically forbidden. It's finally coded into law in the Widow's Law 53 AC, page 204, Fire and Blood. Disinherit their children, right? The words are disinheriting their children.
Yeah,
disinheriting their children is forbidden.
In the case
right?
of Rhaenyra, I agree with you. I don't know about other instances what the inheritance had been, and because in this case, Rhaenyra had been named.
Well, we do know though. We know what the law is.
I'm just saying.
We know what the law is.
I'm with you on the law. What I'm saying is the reason Rhaenyra couldn't be disinherited by that law is she had specifically been named heir. Right?
No. But the law says you can't disinherit her. That's my point, right? There was no question who was the inheriting. Alicent wants Aegon to marry Rhaenyra because there are no rights of inheritance of the second wife. The kids of the second wife are never allowed to inherit any land, any holdings, any titles. You are never allowed to disinheriting their children of the first wife is always forbidden. Right? It's that black and white, page 204, Fire and Blood, the Widow's Law of 53 AC, right? And so the Maesters just lie the whole time, pretending like there's some question here. There's no question.
Read that. But either way, in this case, I definitely agree with you. I don't know if I agree with you in every case, but in Rhaenyra's case,
no, it's in the law. Yeah. It's like specified.
That's fine. I gotta reread it for myself before I can be with you. But
if you have the ebook, you want to search for disinheriting their children. If you have the paper, if you have a hardcover, go to page 204.
Okay, cool.
Second paragraph.
So we've gotten way off of the chapter. Is there anything left we need to read?
Well, no. I was just trying to say. I think we're done with the chapter. So I was just trying to go on with one of the things that we've noticed. We do like to take side trips, especially into Fire and Blood, at the end of these videos. And what I was trying to say was that Arianne, when you look at Arianne, she not only is she the one who tells us all about the second dance in the sample chapters of Winds. She's the one who's, or maybe that's in the second chapter. That's in the sample chapters. She's the one who's learning all about the Dance of Dragons. She's the one who's all about the Kingmaker. A little bit of Jaime as well, right? And people pointed out that the Kingmaker is actually a lot like Jaime. But anyway, my point is when you look at her, somebody pointed out. I can't remember the name now, but I've cited them a few times. The hysterical function on Reddit, that's who it is. They pointed out a few times that so the next male claimant to the throne, who isn't actively rebelling and probably believed dead, is in fact Doran. So after Tommen, if you believe that only males can inherit, as the Dance with the Dragons would seem to imply, the next claimant is Doran Martell, who has a named female heir and would become the claimant by skipping a female who's married to his male heir.
Okay, so you're saying because all the Baratheons and that line is gone now. So now we go back to Dornish Daenerys as the inheritor.
Who has more Dornish blood than the Martells? I mean, so the argument. But most interesting about this is all the parallels that are set up in House of the Dragon are specifically the roles with Arianne. So she has a sex positive uncle who's kind of the rogue character of the story, right? He got his name because he would murder somebody in a fight that wasn't supposed to be to the death. Right. That's why he's, who's more of a rogue character than him, than her sex positive uncle who she fantasizes about, she was sleeping with the Queenmaker. Right.
Arianne has dream where she goes back in time and talks about how basically she had this dream that she wants to have sex with this swarthy person who looks exactly like her uncle. Right.
She's clearly has this thing for her uncle, right?
Yeah, and I hadn't caught that. You're right. That part is completely parallel to Dana.
She's sleeping with the Queenmaker. She's sleeping with the Queenmaker, right? Yeah. She pushed. Now this is somewhat different or somewhat opposite, but she basically pushed the claim of Marcella, who's marrying. So one of the fact that all four of these are the big claimants, right? You've got the male from the previous line that's probably going to be married to Ariane. You've got the next male in the line of succession would be Tristane, right? If Quentin is dead or believed dead. You've got Marcella married to Tristane. So Marcella is the one who would be skipped as a female.
Yeah. You're right, because it's oh my gosh, you're right. He did the exact same thing.
He's setting
everything. Yeah,
he's setting up the Iron Throne inheritance to be exactly the same as the Dance with the Dragons, and he's telling you in Ariane's chapter, this is the second Dance of the Dragons, and she's the one who's told about who talks about Kristen Cole, who sleeps with the Kingsguard, and who they basically call the Queenmaker. I mean, and she's pushed the other person's claim just as which is sort of the opposite, right? The Greens pushed Rhaenyra's claim and then kind of regretted it, right?
So do you think the Dornish are the ones that end up actually killing Aegon then?
I don't know, but it seems like that's kind of important. And then given that we believe that Marcella is sort of a double biological grandparent, grandchild of Ares, could she actually ride a dragon? Maybe, I don't know.
Who?
So if Jaime and Cersei are the Mad King's kids,
I forget about your stuff. Okay, yeah.
Then Marcella is a double. She's like a double biological descendant of the Targaryens, so she rider potentially.
Yeah, I don't know where
Anyway, just a thought.
It's all got Joanna's blood in there too, right? So you don't know how that mixes, right? I think the idea is Rohan Weber. If we go back to Dunk and Egg, Casey, you need to read the Tales of Dunk and Egg. By the way, I don't know if you have done that or not.
You did? I have. I love it. I think so. I think you do.
But Rohan Weber obviously is going directly down to Joanna too, right? And clearly she's given lots of symbolism that she is the spider thing and all that she was psychoactive, right? Uh-oh.
Right.
Am I losing you guys?
Anyway, I kind of like the
I'm getting some weird noises.
Yeah, I was getting some. I was having some problems. My phone was getting warm. I had it on a wireless charger while I was using it while I was streaming, and it wasn't liking me.
Yeah.
The battery's actually gotten low because it was charging so slowly, and then it got overheated, and it's not liking me.
So did you guys hear what I was saying about Rohan Weber or no?
Go ahead. Sorry, repeat it.
I heard a little bit of it. Go ahead and start again.
Yeah, what I was saying is it's clear that Joanna Lannister is a descendant of Rohan Weber, right? Who we
absolutely.
Clearly in the Tales of Dunk and Egg is psychoactive, right? She's got both the spider symbolism and all the rumors about her that she did all these things, right? She killed her husbands, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's pretty clear that she has what I call the gift, from Varandir's chapter, right? So if that's the case, and if your theory is right that the Lannister kids, both generations of Lannister kids, are descendants of Joanna and then Aerys, you're right. That would tend to suggest that the same thing that we're suggesting Jon Snow, if he's R plus L, that he would be able to, if they're A plus J, I guess Joanna, then that would be the case too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a thought that maybe she could even ride a dragon, but just because it really does look like the Marcella claims and the Marcella Tristane versus Aegon and Ariane is some interesting claims that have so many interesting parallels to the dance, and that's where you're seeing the references to a second Dance with the Dragons, and so it makes you wonder if that's really going to be a thing. Anyway,
Sure.
just something to chew on.
I thought you were throwing the Marcella thing out there just to break the internet.
So you guys familiar with the YouTube channel Septuagina's Secrets? Have you seen their videos?
Oh,
No.
So he the guy, they call himself Maester I don't know, whatever. Anyway, he's I'm on a chat thing with him, but he has some really good stuff about Tyrion and his double Dragon X plus Lannister as well. So to me, the symbolism is about Tyrion and him having both Tywin and Aerys as a father, right?
Right. Well, and I've always thought that's the most likely. And one of the things it gives you is it gives you the potential for him to be, for the dragons to like him, because he's got probably more dragon blood in him than Brown.
Right. So I always thought he would, yeah.
While still killing his biological father, right?
Right. So I always thought that he, early on in Game of Thrones, at least, George was thinking maybe he's the third head of the great dragon because of all the stuff we know. Tyrion has all this knowledge. He was obsessed with dragons, all that. So to me, that was the obvious one, right? But
right.
There are all sorts of people who could end up, and I still think Quentin might have actually ridden Viserion out of the pyramid, right? So
or have you heard the Toodle's theory is that he actually sort of skin changed into him, and he's actually the reason that the dragon's actually acting differently now because he's tamed the dragon.
I feel like skin changing and dragon riding are basically the same thing.
Yeah,
really.
I do too.
That's kind of what if you watch my latest videos, that's kind of where I'm going.
Where potentially the bond is somewhat in reverse because the dragons are the smarter and more long-lived creatures.
Dragon, especially Drogon. So not all the dragons, but Drogon, he's one of those like the Black Dread and like what's the other one that nobody can ever ride? Cannibal, right?
Cannibal,
so Drogon, the Cannibal, and Balerion are special dragons, just like Shaggy Dog and Ghost are special direwolves, right?
And it might be that everybody that rides
the red and green eyes.
It might be that everybody that rides black dragons are dreamers as well, right?
The red and green eyes too, right? It's the red and green eyes on top of it.
It does seem like black dragons might be choose only to bond with the dreamers potentially.
Yeah,
I never caught that.
Oh yeah, Dan. So Casey, if you watch my first set of Danny videos, she is in communication with Drogon while he's still an egg.
Definitely.
She is her first dragon dream. That's right before she's married.
Right.
That's Drogon being in the next room, that egg communicating to her. He's an old soul, as they call it, right? Drogon's been alive since whatever however you want it. He just needed Dany and her magic and that bond to bring it out, right? And then the next two dragons, there are literally scenes where she's holding them close to her. She has that scene and she's sleeping with the dragon and has and she's waking the other two dragons. It's to me, it's really clear in there what George was doing. And so I covered that in my first set of Danny videos that I did early in my channel.
With Drogon being an old soul, basically just reincarnating all the way through history, then
no, I'm just saying he's been in that egg waiting for 200 years since stole it.
Right.
I thought you were talking about the reincarnation. Okay.
Well, I'm saying Alyssa Farman's eggs that he was conscious the whole time, basically. He's conscious as an egg.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right.
And he finally found his rider in Dany when she was in the next room while he was in the chest before he was given to her.
Okay. All right. I'm on board now. Okay.
Sounds good.
So we got off topic again. I don't know where we were going.
No, I mean, we can wrap it up if you want. I think we've covered everything.
Well, I think since we talked about the dagger again, I like how the show folks have brought that dagger back again, and they used it a couple times. We haven't talked since really the first couple weeks or whatever. The show just started last time we streamed, right? So the dagger being Alicent having it in her hand and Aegon now has it, right? It was given to him in that last episode. I have not watched the so please don't spoil me if you guys have seen
me neither.
I do not
We
like
have a
leaks.
history of spoiling stuff, so.
No, I haven't watched the last episode because apparently it was leaked. I didn't know if you guys had.
I didn't watch it either.
But I think it's really kind of cool what they did there, and they're kind of making that thing almost like the One Ring to rule them all and all that, which you gotta love little tie-ins to pop culture, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, anything with a sword. I mean, you gotta love it.
And of course, that ties right back into our chapter what we just covered. That dagger plays a very, very, very prominent role in this chapter. So,
yeah, awesome. Well, I guarantee you, we will not do the next Eddard chapter without you.
Okay, sounds good.
This has been.
You know why I want to talk about that, of course.
I know. Trust me. I mean, I can see the foam right now. It's right in the corner of your mouth. You're ready to go. So, definitely bring my A game on that chapter.
That's good.
But, it's over an hour. Generally, we try to do the 30 minutes, but me and Richard generally talk way too long and get off topic way too long. I like to talk too, so. Yeah. Well, the next chapter is Arya. We're going to try to get it one day this week and then get up with the Green Bard for the Eddard chapter. I don't know how many chapters away it is, but definitely get up with him on this. Anybody that watches this that the Green Bard brings in, we do appreciate it. We kind of cut things off pretty quick. I have been Old New Dude.
I've been Richard York, the Basher's 2-point son.
And I am the Green Bard.
With the Green Bard's truth. All right, y'all have a good day. Stay safe, and we will see you next time. Y'all be good.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again, Green Bard.
Thank you guys for having me. It's fun.
Not a problem.
Bye.